Having the idea is probably having 30% of that. But actually doing it, you will discover the other 30% or the other 40%. And then perfecting it will take a long time. So I would tell people, just do it, just start it. This is not because I'm an entrepreneur, because I think in life, right, you go through different stages of life, and baby, right, they naturally learn how to crawl and learn how to walk. Even though you didn't teach them, it just came, right? So what is it that if you fail or you fall, right, you get back up and walk again. Don't be afraid to try.
Hello everybody, welcome to the Human Exchange, or THX for short. My name is John, and THX is a platform where I want to have real, raw and relevant conversations in both our professional and personal lives. As you will know, here at THX, I am interested to not just engage experts, but to talk with humans, to hear their stories and their experiences and things that we can draw from them. Now, today I have a very, I always say this, right? But he is a very special and interesting human. I've got Elvin with me today. And the reason why I brought Elvin onto the show today for this episode is I want to hear from his experience on some of the differences or some of the factors around how we should decide whether we should pursue a professional career or be an entrepreneur. Now, Elvin is well versed in this area, best candidate to speak into this because he was actually a pharmacist in Australia for a while. And then after that, he co-founded this company called RPG Commerce. Now, that company may not sound familiar to you, but you might know this brand called Montigo, a lifestyle drinkware brand that you will see in many popular Malaysian malls. So I'm excited and I'm very keen to hear from Elvin today. Elvin, thank you so much for taking the time to join us on this episode.
It's a great pleasure to be here, John. Thank you for inviting me to speak today, to share about my journey, to share about, what we want to talk about, to belong or to build, right? And it's such an honor to be here.
Great. Elvin, let's jump straight into it. Maybe to start off, let's hear about your experience. What made you choose to go from a somewhat safe career, I would say, as a pharmacist to going into the world of entrepreneurship and business building?
Sure. Let me introduce a little bit about my background. So my name is Elvin, one of the co-founders of RPG Commerce. We built a lot of brands, right now or in the past, right? The brands like Thousand Miles, Bottom Slab, the UB, Montigo, Cosmic Cookware, and these all belongs to RPG Commerce. And I've been in this journey for almost 8 years now. And moving back to Malaysia for about 3 years ago. So 2022, I made that move, right? If it wasn't for COVID, I think it would have been earlier, probably 2020. So I was ready to make that move to come back. But of course, it didn't, it wasn't something that I decided straight away to make that move to come back. I actually took a bit of time to actually make that move to come back. I studied pharmacy in Melbourne, in Australia. That's where I met John. We used to play a lot of futsal together, go to church together and all that. I spent a long time in pharmacy. So I started working in pharmacy, I think late 2008 or 2009. Graduated in 2012. And I was in pharmacy all the way. I love pharmacy, don't get me wrong. Pharmacy was great for me. It was a great platform for me to build myself up. I wasn't a very good talker or extroverted person, but when in pharmacy, there's you are being put into that situation where you have to talk to people, you have to ask appropriate questions, you have to be sensitive culturally as well. And Australia, it's like Malaysia, very diverse in terms of cultures, right? And I was in pharmacy full time till 2016. Though I started something on my own in 2015, but I was in for quite a number of years, and then I went part time in 2017, late 2017, and then I went casual in 2019. So I progressively moved away from a stable job, right? And it wasn't an easy journey for sure. And back then I was doing a lot of e-commerce. I started up a e-commerce website selling t-shirts, and it was okay. It was making just all right money. And the whole reason why I started this journey at home was because living in Australia, I was a bit bored. And seeing that, going to work and come back every day, it was like very mundane, very routine, right? And don't get me wrong, I put 100% of my effort in my work as well. And, when I'm in pharmacy, I really do work hard, right? And of course, and when I come home, everything shuts early in Australia, and it's not wrong, right? When you come home around 8 o'clock, you'll be like, oh, what do I do? And I do have a lot of time, and that's where, a lot of ideas kicked in. And of course, I was living with my brother at the time, Melvin, and he's also one of my co-founders in RPG Commerce right now. And in fact, he's the CEO right now. We always talk a lot, bounce a lot of ideas. We have always been raised in a traditional Chinese business family, right? Talk a lot about money, talk a lot about businesses and all that. But my dad is an entrepreneur, and he's still working and not wanting to give up his business and all that. But my mom worked for a bank, so I get to see that both sides of the world, right? And our parents, funnily, they never wanted us to have our own business. Actually, they just wanted us to have a very stable career. Get your education right, and they work hard to put us through the education, send us to overseas for tertiary education and all that. But they just wanted us to have a stable career and a stable income. That's it. And I was like, I feel that's not what I'm called for. And I think my brother felt the same as well. So we started exploring a lot of ideas online, and, internet, that's where you get a lot of ideas from, right? Even until today as well. With all the AI coming in, it makes it a lot easier. So we were sitting down in a living room one day, and we came up with a brilliant idea. I'll call it at that point. Oh, well, I wouldn't say brilliant at that point. When it struck us, we thought it was quite stupid. So we actually came up with this blanket called mermaid blanket. A blanket that looks like a mermaid tail. Yeah. And we started this in 2016, early 2016, I remember. And how we did it was my brother just built a website to test. And
so what was the special features of this mermaid blanket?
It just looks cute.
It just looks like a mermaid and it looks cute. Okay.
Correct.
Okay.
So it was a rather cold night, right? It was a rather cold night that we sat on the couch and watching TV, and this idea just came. And we were like, mermaid blanket, let's see if we can source this, right? No secret back then. Or maybe it was a secret back then. Like, you can easily source from a lot of websites like Taobao, Alibaba, AliExpress, and all these places, right? So we started looking, and we realized that there wasn't something too similar at that point of time. So we decided to book a ticket and fly to China. And look, as an early entrepreneur, then when this idea came, you don't even think about product market fit, right? And we were fortunate, we were lucky, right, that we hit the right product, and I guess at the right time, right? So we manufactured these in China, and my brother and I, we don't speak a lot of Mandarin. My Mandarin was pretty bad at that point, right? And now it has improved a lot. And it was pretty bad at that point that we had to get a cousin to come with us to be our translator. Imagine these two boys grew up in Kebangsaan school, went to Australia for studies. Mandarin was very limited. So we flew to Shanghai. We took a bullet train to this province called Anhui, and to a little small town called Chizhou to meet two guys that we've never met, only spoken over WeChat. And that's when I actually downloaded WeChat and started using WeChat, right, for this purpose. And we fast forward, right, that mermaid blanket sold really well, and in 6 months, 7 figures US dollar. Like, for two young boys, we were like, wow.
That is so interesting. Where did you sell this blanket, or rather, which region or country did you market to? Was it Australia?
It started with Australia, and then it went global, because we figured out that we would rather ship it out from China to every part of the world. So we were doing this business. Some people call it drop shipping, but I wouldn't entirely call it drop shipping, because we have this product and we were selling out of this from the source in China to all parts of the world. But yeah, some people would just label it as drop shipping. So we expanded on this idea.
Hey everybody, taking a moment from our conversation to tell you that this episode is actually sponsored by our partners, Medicos. Now, I personally don't really like wearing masks, but when I need to, I go to no other brand except Medicos, because I find that they are the most comfortable, but they also offer the most protection compared to all other masks in the market. Now, in front of me here, I got the M99 Flip range, which is designed for comfort. It is something that you can wear all day at the mall, in the office, and you can even speak through it. It's 5-ply, so really, really designed for comfort. For this range, you can find it on their online store, Medicore's online store, or all their e-commerce platforms, Lazada and Shopee. Now, back to the episode. There's a lot of rich content there, insights. I just wanted to pick up on this one here, where you went to China not knowing much Mandarin. So I'm curious, how did you find the contacts? Like, okay, you downloaded WeChat, but who did you know who to contact? How did you know which factory to look for? So you went from an idea, okay, this is the idea you have. Sounds like it was very, very accelerated. Right away, you jump on a plane, go. So I'm just curious to understand the steps. Where did you find your contacts?
Yep, maybe take a step back, right? We actually tested this idea out, right? We launched that website at night with no product, and it was a really bad website. And then my brother started running some ads because he's more of a digital marketing person, always very into Facebook back then. We call it now Meta, right? Performance marketing. And I don't have much to contribute, to be honest. And how I contributed at first was as an investor. I said, I have $1,000. Let's use this $1,000 to build something.
To start a website and to run ads.
Yeah.
Okay.
To build something sound. And then we tested the idea, and overnight we saw orders coming in. But hey, we have no product. And when I say we didn't test the product market fit, we didn't really test it in a full scale like how we would nowadays, right? But it was good enough to say that there was traction and we are onto something. And we hired someone on freelancer.com and to do the what do you call it, like Photoshop and stuff like that, right? Of the product on a model and like through stock photos and all these things, right? It's been a while, so I can't quite remember the details, but we just started off like that. And when we saw the traction, we were like, okay, we're gonna book a flight and to go to China. And how did we find this contact, right? Is through AliExpress, through Alibaba. We are not gonna pick 10 people that we're gonna work with, right? We're just gonna pick a few. Then I chatted for a day or two, and I filter out and say, let's go. And naive, but I think it was good. My parents always warned me, you gotta be careful, going to China. That sort of sentiment. But to me, going to China on my own for the first time, I was mind blown. I felt, wow, this country is actually already quite advanced. And looking at them today, they're very much far ahead than a lot of countries, right? And when I got there, we were like, this is the place, this is the address given, let's go. There's a lot of risks that we are taking there, right? And my brother said, I can only do it between this time because he was still in uni. I can skip classes and not miss my, tests or exams day and stuff like that. So it was like, okay, we're going to go for 3-4 days and then come back. That's it. 2 young boys went off to China to source and to start building who we are today.
Wow, that's crazy. I've heard of that before, like people just running ads and not actually having the actual product in the inventory yet. Like you just kind of like test it out. But I'm curious, was there a certain threshold you were looking for to see that, okay, the minute we get this amount of orders, then we'll go?
Well, at that point when we started, there was no threshold that we were looking for. We just, we on the first day, I can't remember what was the number of orders, say for example, 10 orders, right? So we just continued doubling down on the ad spend and looking at return on ad spend, ROAS, or some people call it ROI, right? So the numbers were good. We continue doubling down again and we don't have a product. And we have to tell our customers, please wait for 3 to 4 months for this product to be sent.
And they were okay with that? Like they were okay with that. They committed to the order?
Yeah, they were okay with that.
So how was the payment terms like? Do they pay a deposit first or do they pay in full and they just wait?
Paid in full and wait. And
That's
I was
amazing.
doing customer service, replying this email, had this template and say, hey, our product's still in production. Be honest with them, right? Be honest with them and say this product is still in production and you will not receive it tomorrow, but it will arrive in 3 to 4 months.
This was back in
2016.
2016.
Yeah.
Question for you then. 2016 and now, obviously very different times. Do you think that this kind of strategy would still work? Do you think customers would still be willing to part with their money upfront and wait a few months? Because the reality is, back then, there was e-commerce, but it's probably not as saturated as it is now. So I'm curious to hear your point of view. Do you think this kind of strategy would still work in this day and age?
I think this sort of strategy may not work anymore. We still tested it about 3-4 years ago, even at a larger scale already, right? We used to do a lot of pre-order. So we did pre-order because the demand existed, the supply. So we don't have enough inventory. But we have to be honest with customer and say, this is a pre-order and you are going to receive it between this period of time and you're not going to get it straight away. So we did that model. So that model 3-4 years ago during COVID time still worked. But today we have not done that anymore. So I'm not sure whether it will still work or not. But if you're thinking back what I did in 2016, I don't think so. No, not many people will be comfortable about paying upfront for something that they could probably find in Shopee, Lazada, or TikTok, right? And can get that straight away rather than waiting for 3 to 4 months, right? But I think one point of differentiation that we had at that point of time was the product was unique. No one was selling it, and we actually blew it up. And this website was actually called Ariel Blankets, not in operation anymore. But it's a name that always stick in me. And
should I tattoo it on your body or something?
Maybe
as a reminder.
Maybe something.
Any of your kids called Ariel?
No.
Okay. So it didn't mean that much then. So if somebody were to, or if you were to advise a budding entrepreneur, maybe they have an idea for a product. Is there any adjustment you can make to this strategy that you started with to share with this entrepreneur? Maybe you can try this now, but with adjustments to today's context. Anything you can think of?
Very good question, John. I think to answer you, right, I would probably still do the same thing. I feel a lot of people spend too much time thinking and wanting to perfect an idea. And today in the organization, right, we still do a lot of that. Everyone is guilty of that. You think a lot, you spend a lot of time figuring out what is the best way, when is the best time. Actually, no, you just have to start doing it. You may not get it right straight away, right? Having the idea is probably having 30% of that, at that point of time, right? Having 30% of that end goal. But actually doing it, you will discover the other 30% or the other 40%. And then perfecting it will take a long time. And, along the way, you realize that before you reach the end goal or close to your end goal, that's when you get the other 30% or 40%. So I would tell people, just do it, just start it. And this is not because I'm an entrepreneur, because I think in life, right, I always use human as an analogy when I share with people. Right? You go through different stages of life, and baby, right, they naturally learn how to crawl and learn how to walk. Even though you didn't teach them how to crawl and how to walk. It just came, right? And to me, how I think about it is they are so brave. I mean, we were at that stage, right? So brave of just trying. So what is it that if you fail or you fall, right? You get back up and walk again. And the best thing about being a baby is your parents are always there with you, right? But hey, in our life right now, if we want to start something new, right? Our parents will still be there if our parents are still around. If not, there are always our loved ones that are there to support us. So make sure that you have the right support and don't be afraid to try.
Great points there. And I've heard of this person sharing about having a minimum viable product, an MVP. So I've heard this guy share about writing a book. So he shared that if you want to release a book, what you do is you put ads out for the concept of the book. So maybe you have a preview, like you have got the first chapter, or you've got a table of contents that people can already see what this book is about. Then maybe you get some endorsements in, and then once you gain that amount of interest, people put their name down or whatever, then you can start publishing or producing. I've also heard the same methodology can be applied to products. So for example, if you wanted to launch a t-shirt, let's take a t-shirt as an example, what you can do is you can invest in maybe just a certain amount of quantity, maybe 50 to 100 pieces, something that is small, not something that would cost you a lot on the first outlay, but just enough, right? You got a minimum viable product, you got enough volume to fulfill certain orders, and then if there is enough interest and it gets sold out, then you can say, okay, like it's now it's pre-order because the next line is coming out or the next batch is coming in, right? That kind of thing. Do you think that will work? What are your thoughts on that?
100%, I agree. Taking Montigo as an example, we started Montigo in mid-2020 during the peak of COVID, I would say, when COVID already started and sort of like the peak of COVID, right? We initially built Montigo for an outdoor, team, based on outdoor team, right? Wanting men to use water bottle when they hike or when they go on, adventures. But eventually we pivoted to who we are today, right? When we started, I remember we ordered just the MOQ of that product. And of course, before we came to this decision to start Montigo, we did our work, we did our research, right? Looking at data, looking at, the demands and the trend, spotting what is the next, niche that, it's in demand. And we spotted thermal insulated bottles, and we decided to just try it. And at that point of time, I have a big team running a lot of brands, close to 10 brands in my portfolio, right? But we always have this small team that is very agile to test out new things. And even today, we're still doing that. And you need these people in your organizations, no matter how big you are, right? Special projects, we call it, right? Or some people call it lab or studio to try new things, right? So we ordered very small amount to try it, and we don't have any expectation. We didn't have any expectation at that point of time. Once it started selling, and then we started looking at numbers again and looking at engagement in our social media posts and all that. And true enough, right, it was a good hit, and we sold out within 6 weeks, I would say.
So you already had some in the inventory too.
Inventory,
okay,
correct.
Right.
Small amount. And we will be questioning ourselves, why we didn't order enough, why didn't we order more? But no, that mindset, you can't always think like that, what if it was a failure? So, from there on, we build up our confidence and slowly scaling it up. And the speed of how you scale up is dependent on your appetite as well. So at that point of time, we had a lot of brands that were running already. Cash flow wasn't an issue. We scaled up pretty quickly. And that's why you see, this brand actually less than 5 years old, actually about 5 years old now, grew so quickly. And, building a brand, 3 things I always say to people: it's about product, it's about your channels, how you are selling it to, and it's about your marketing as well. So you need to get this trifecta right in order for you to build a good brand. Yeah, in my personal opinion and experience, yeah.
But with Aerial Blankets, you did it the other way around, right? You
Correct.
did marketing first through certain channels, and then only you churn out the product.
Correct.
But conceptually, you had a product in mind. So it's kind of like being able to work with, around these 3 factors, right? Product, channel, and marketing.
Yeah, just that I didn't hold the product in my hand, didn't see it in person. Yeah, that's the difference over time.
Yeah. That's insightful. You already know roughly what kind of product that you're trying to sell, but you don't need to commit to the product first. You can go the end first. You can start marketing it through selected channels, and then you can see whether that product is worth launching. Were there any products that you tried to launch and it failed?
Oh, so many. So many. Well, let me pick one, right? I will use one brand that I think a lot of Malaysians would have come across and probably know, right? It's called Comfort Republic. It's a men's underwear brand, specifically targeting oversized men, because we actually developed this product to, I myself, I'm not small, right? So I do a lot of sports. And sometimes when it gets sweaty, I get chafing between my thighs here, right? So we wanted to go out and build something to solve this. And of course, when we have a lot of brands running, and this was one of that came out from that lab or from that special projects, right? And we thought, wow, it was a brilliant idea, helping men and all that, right? We got a good product, great product, tested it, tried it, sampled it, very good. I liked it. And in fact, right, we didn't invent this, I have to say. We saw this in Australia and we are just improvising it. And, we were like, Malaysians, unfortunately, I think we have one of the
highest obesity rate in Southeast Asia, actually.
Yeah, and like oversized, right? And we were like, these will be great. So we had this product, a great product. We know how we're going to market it. We're going to use our normal way of doing it, digital marketing, influencer marketing. And we figure out the marketing, right? And we got a channel, like, Shopee, Lazada. And this was 4 or 5 years ago as well, just before Montigo was birthed, right? So this brand, but we didn't figure out that one of the problems with this product is actually very low price point and leading to low AOV. Sorry, I'm getting a bit technical here, but these are the things
AOV stand for?
Average order value. So meaning buying a pair of underwear, probably you spend like 30, 40 ringgit. It's really considered quite, premium.
For the consumer.
Right? Yeah, to consumers, right? So a lot of times we realize that our customers are buying 1 or 2 pieces. Then we started doing bundles, 3, 4 pieces in one, just hoping to increase the AOV. But no, it wasn't that easy to encourage people to buy 3 or 4. So we struggled with that AOV, right? And couldn't really scale this brand up very quickly. And going to channels were difficult at that point of time. We were just stuck in e-commerce, and we didn't expand quickly into to being an omni-channel, to go to retail stores and all that, because we didn't know how to do distribution. We didn't know how to do consignment to departmental stores. We didn't know how to, sell it to, overseas distributors and all that. So at that point of time, we were spending a lot of money on digital marketing and wanting to build this brand up. And I guess, we were a bit impatient. And, at the end of the day, we killed this brand. We shut it down. But I still feel that it's a great product. It's a great brand. Even today, I saw on TikTok Shop, right? Sometimes when I scroll TikTok Shop, there's a lot of copycats. And, and a lot of people mention, I read the comments, a lot of people mention, they still miss their Comfort Republic. And I'm not being biased. I still miss my Comfort Republic, to be honest. But unfortunately, it was just not the right brand at the right time.
Yeah, maybe it's a bit of an ego thing as well, because like men, they wouldn't want to admit they're oversized. So they're like, oversized underwear. No, that's not me. That's somebody else. That's not me.
Yeah, but correct.
But what I'm picking up is that, if you want to go into some form of entrepreneurship, you must have a little bit of appetite for risk and loss, right? Because it's not about perfecting it. It's about just starting and then progressing from there. So there has to be some element of risk of loss. So either is loss of time or effort. Maybe even be a financial loss. Like if you were to invest in a small inventory, there's going to be initial financial outlay. You need to put it out there. Same with the marketing and the channels, right? All these things take a little bit of money. But what I'm trying to get at is that it's not about perfecting it, but you must be prepared for some form of risk if you want to be an entrepreneur, which I think that's not what many people, if they're honest, are willing to do. Because I'm also not, none of us are naturally risk takers. Most of us are risk adverse. And just now when you went back to the illustration of a child growing up, when you're a child, you are led by ignorance. You find out things through failure. But as you grow older, as you mature, your experience can be a double-edged sword. It can help you, but it can also hold you back. Because that's where you let previous failures, disappointment, discouragement shape your worldview. And that can eventually also become some form of prison, where you are trapped into thinking, I need to get it 100% right. I need to have all the steps figured out. Then only I would move. But for what I'm hearing from you, it's sometimes it's counterintuitive. You just start, get it going, agree or determine how much risk you're willing to take. Just go for it and then see where it goes.
Correct. And just like you starting this podcast, right? You don't know where this is gonna take you, right? But you just have that faith that it will be something of value. to people, and hopefully one day it will be something big, right? So you took that risk as well, and I would say being an entrepreneur. I think one of your questions before we started this podcast was you asked, what does it take to be an entrepreneur? Right? I think you hit it right at the spot, and number one thing for me is you got to ask yourself, right? What do you want for yourself? What do you want in life? And risks. There are a lot of risks that you need to take when you are an entrepreneur. Right? And the number one question is you still have to ask yourself: are you okay taking these risks, and you are uncertain about the returns or the reward? This is the number one question that you have to ask yourself, because the risk can come from many aspects. Financial risks, emotional risks, and being too trapped in your own idea or in your own self or your own belief about a certain product or a certain brand, certain idea, right, can be very heavy on your emotions as well. So these are the risks that you have to consider. And of course, being an entrepreneur, it will take your time out from your family, from your friends, from your social circle, from looking after yourself and all that, right? Because you put a lot of time and energy into your idea, and especially when you are not like me, right? When my idea is not great yet, I want to perfect it. I want to make it a great idea, right? Then I put a lot of grind into it. So number one thing you have to ask yourself is: are you ready to take these risks, right? And not everyone want to. Some people are happy with just doing a 9-to-5 job. Nothing wrong with that, really. Nothing wrong with that. It's just about what do you want in life, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and on the flip side, there is also the risk of not doing anything. There's a risk of doing something, but there's also a risk of not doing anything. A couple of episodes back, I spoke to another guy on job security, and I think one of the risks of not doing anything is the risk of stagnation. Because if you just end up, again, nothing wrong with having a stable career, but if you are just in a stable career, you're cruising, you also run the risk of plateauing. And then eventually you might find that your skills or your experience is not relevant to the market. Or if you feel that you might reach a certain stage of life where you wanted to do something, but you can't already because of your present circumstances. So I think there are two kinds of risks, right? There is the risk of doing something as dangerous as entrepreneurship, but staying exactly the same is also a form of risk. And that's a risk that's very I think this is the risk that business owners understand, because your business, you must always grow. You cannot maintain, because if you maintain, somebody else will come and cut you off, or you may eventually reach a decline or plateau and then decline, which is very hard to, it's hard to turn around when you reach that stage. So that's why business owners are always, entrepreneurs are always trying to stay ahead of the game, ahead of the curve. They're always looking for the new thing, developing the new product, breaking the new market. I think that's the way things are, right? I did want to you shared a lot of things, so many things we can unpackage. I did want to kind of like backtrack a little bit to ask what were some determining factors or hard questions you had to ask yourself. Now I've got two paths in front of me. I got the route of the professional, stay as a pharmacist, keep that line, because it's everywhere needs pharmacists. Australia needs pharmacists all the time, and it's a stable thing. You will never be out of a job, arguably, versus going into this unknown thing, entrepreneurship. Don't even know what product to sell, what product you'll be selling in 5 years' time. How will your financial situation be in a decade from now? So how did you navigate those factors? Any pointers or principles that you fell back to?
Definitely. I was in that situation, right? When you mentioned you have a stable job and you're very comfortable, and living in Australia is very comfortable, to be honest, if you have a stable job and a stable income, right? But I was feeling stagnant. I was getting there, and I was quite young at that time, still 25, 26. I still work in Australia nowadays as a pharmacist to keep my registration, right? I still go back and practice. That's another topic, right? Like why I do that and all that. But at that point of time, I was doing quite well, I would say. I was working. I was working for a big pharmacy chain in Australia, and they have a lot of progression for me as well. Wanting to make me the store manager of a new store, and an opportunity to co-own a pharmacy as well, right? But these are the risks that I was considering at that time. Do I want to be here, or do I want to start my own thing? And I was feeling stagnant already. Like, where else I could go if I become a manager and then I become a co-owner, right? What else can I do? I'll probably be standing here at a point in time. I was thinking pharmacy. I'll probably be standing or sitting here still in the next 10 years. And do I want to do that? And there was no compelling reason or a driving factor for me, I have to say, to leave pharmacy at that point yet. And it's a struggle. I was thinking back and forth, like, do I or do I not? And at the same time, I was building up a small business and coming up, right? And I'm proud of what I've achieved in the first year as two young boys, right, building a e-commerce business, right? And it's a 50-50 thing. Do I jump in now or do I wait? And there was no compelling factors or driving factors to this. But there was one day, right? It just hit me. Say, look, actually, what hit me was freedom. Well, when I say freedom, you'll be thinking, being an entrepreneur make you more to have more freedom, or be like, why freedom, right? And finally, right, a few days ago, I was in Hong Kong. Right, I caught up with an ex-colleague of mine from pharmacy days in Australia. Now she moved back to Hong Kong, and we were chatting over dinner, right? And I asked her, like, why did you move back? She moved back about just under a year. And when we were having this conversation, even though she's still in pharmacy in Hong Kong, but she's doing a lot of things on the side already, and related to science and biotech and stuff like that, right? And slowly cutting her hours down as well, moving away from pharmacy. And through our sharing and our conversations, she reminded me of the very reason why I decided to leave my full-time job. And she brought the word freedom as well. And what I meant by freedom, right, was, there are a lot of freedom that come out of this journey, right? Time freedom is one of them. Creative freedom is one of them. Purpose freedom is one of them, right? And lastly, financial freedom. So actually, before lastly is another thing that I think is very important is decision-making freedom and financial freedom. These 5 freedoms at that point of time I was going through, trying to think about it, right? And what I meant by time freedom is, don't get me wrong, right? You still have to put in a lot of time working on your own business, and compared to a 9-to-5 job. 9-to-5 job is, once I'm done, I go home. I don't think about work anymore most of the time. But being an entrepreneur, you think about your stuff all the time. But what I meant by time freedom is actually you have that flexibility to know what to prioritize at that point of time. I can start my work at 10 o'clock, and in the morning, I can prioritize to do something else. That's the freedom that I'm talking about, right? And, I can choose how to spend my time, and why do I want to spend my time in these. I can choose, right? There's a lot more flexibility out of it. Creative freedom. I always have wild ideas. Everyone has a lot of thoughts. When you're showering, you have a lot of thoughts, right? A lot of ideas, right? But working in an organization sometimes can be very structured. You have to go through a lot of layers of approval for your idea that you want to do for the organization, right? One of the reasons are there. This is why I felt like I need to build something on my own. Creative freedom was what I was craving for, to be honest. I want to express myself. I want to do something for myself. And, being an entrepreneur allows you to have that. And of course, decision-making freedom. You are making decision for yourself, not for someone else. And you're also not, you have to be fully responsible for that decision. Of course, that's the flip side of it, right? And, if it fails, it's on you, not on the company, right? So, but, I like that. I want to be able to make decisions for myself, chart my own path. And that was what I was longing for, right? Purpose freedom. There's this saying, like, I was brought up in a very traditional Chinese family. I've always been told that you shouldn't be building someone else's dream. You should be building your own dream. And this is why I think purpose freedom came to me and say, I want to be a bit more purposeful in life. And how do I do that, right? So I want to build my own thing. So that's why I decided to be an entrepreneur and say, hey, look, being an entrepreneur allows me to have this purpose freedom. And lastly, financial freedom. I think this was one of the something that I didn't consider the most. At that point in time, I was stable. I, had a fixed income, and it was okay. Just bought a house. It was a big commitment at 25 years old, and then this is when you think about, wow, financial freedom, really? You have to put in a lot of time, effort, and even money or investment into starting something new, right? And you're not sure about the return, but the return can be uncapped versus you working 9 to 5, working for a company, right? That's where I come from, about financial freedom. You're building assets, equity for yourself, right? Rather than trading your time for money. So this is what I meant, lah. And don't get me wrong, right? Not all the time that you will be successful and you will make a lot of money. No, I've gone through that, ups and downs in businesses, right? Never once, right? Someone will say that, I built a successful business and it's always going to be successful. No, I don't believe that. I really don't believe that. I believe that, there are always ups and downs in businesses, and same as in finances. So, you just have to always think ahead how you prepare yourself for that. And yeah, that's what I was thinking about when I was tossing between leaving pharmacy completely, or I still want to go half.
Yeah. I guess it comes back to the individual person, right? Some people, they thrive more in structure, like they have that stability, they have that guiding points or principles of what will come from a job, from a stable job. But some people like yourself, you need that freedom to express. You feel stifled rather than guarded when you're working in a structured way. And I think you brought up some very pertinent points, right? Obviously, with a stable job, you are able to kind of like calculate roughly what is your financial situation going to be like. If I'm earning this much by this time, then I go for this level, or I go for this position in this type of company. I have that. And there are two ways to look at that. One person may go, wow, that's very good. I roughly know. But another person might go, what? Is that all? And I think you're the kind of person, right? You go, What? Is that all? Because like you said, being an entrepreneur, theoretically speaking, your salary or your earning power is uncapped. You can go, right? But there is also a bottomless pit.
Yes.
Yeah. Right? Where at least in a career, you have some kind of like a baseline, right? No matter how bad you are, if you have a certain amount of experience, this is the minimum you probably can get at a certain age, right? As long as you keep yourself relevant.
Yeah.
But with an entrepreneur, it's a bottomless pit.
Yes.
Yeah. You can aim as high as you want, but you can also fall as far as you could, depending on the kind of risk that you take. So I say all of that to really, really come back to the point that it's really up to the individual. Some people thrive in being given that kind of freedom, but some people actually prefer the more structured, predictable kind of trajectory in terms of their professional life.
Definitely. I think there's no right and wrong. It's really what you want for yourself and where you want to be. That's the number one question that you have to ask yourself. Yeah.
Any advice you would give to, say, a person who's maybe a mid to senior professional? So maybe they've got like anywhere between 10 to 15 years of working experience, or maybe even slightly below that, 7. So they've been just hustling in their career for a company for other people. And then suddenly they had this realization, wow, why am I building somebody else's dream? I should be building my own thing. And then now they want to go into entrepreneurship. Any advice or that? Should they quit their day job, or is there some kind of process you should go through? I don't know.
Fantastic if you have that thought, right? I will always encourage people to try out because, one of the questions in the early days I asked myself, will I regret not trying or will I regret failing? and ask yourself this question: whether would you regret it? And I assume when you're working 7 years, 10 years, 15 years, right, you are quite stable financially. And
Hopefully.
hopefully
you have some good financial habits.
Correct. And you should have some safety net as well, right? And I think it's a good time to start off, because one thing that I felt in my company, among my co-founders, right, we were lacking of this when we started out. All of us either was our first thing out of uni. For me, no. For my other co-founders, right, it's like their first thing out of uni. They have not worked for anyone else. And you are not going to be prepared for what that building your own company is going to come at you, right? Lacking of structure. You don't know how to do certain things. You don't know how to even set up your org chart, right? Your team, how to build a team, how to interview someone, how to hire someone, how to deal with discipline issues and all that, right? That lack of structure. Are you ready for that? But if you have already been working for 7, 10 years, right? I don't think you have a problem with that. You are probably at that point, hopefully, senior exec already, or junior manager or senior manager already, right? It will sort of speed up your process. And with the experience and also the network, the people that you know as well, I feel you are in a good position to start something new. And, of course, you must validate your idea first. I can't emphasize enough about getting that MVP, or some people call it PMF, right? Product market fit, right? It's you must have that idea validated first through whatever ways, as silly as you want, asking people questions on the street and stuff like that, right? And, back then, we used to do a lot of that, go on the street and talk to people and ask people, right? The most scrapey way. But that's the most genuine way of people telling you your idea is horrible. Your idea is great, and don't ask your friends. To be honest, I won't ask my friends about my idea, because they may want to please you and say it's a great idea. Or they just, not happy.
Or they could be the harshest critics, in fact. The ones where they're the most closed off, because they already have a certain perception of you, and they will just be like, don't bother, that's a bad idea, that kind of thing. Yeah, so they will really be seeing it from their own lenses, right? So I agree with you. Actually asking strangers to validate your idea, because they are kind of like free from whatever biases they will have about you. Because when you ask them an idea, they will be thinking about you doing this idea rather than the idea in itself. So sometimes it's valuable, or more valuable, more helpful to actually ask people that you don't really know. Hey, what do you think about this? Have you thought about that? That kind of thing.
Spot on, exactly that, John. I think back to your question again, what else do you need to do if you are thinking about leaving your career when you're already 7, 10 years in, right? Firstly, making sure that your idea is valid and, people like your idea. There's a product market fit, or there's a demand for your product or your idea, right? And then secondly, I would advise people to start small and scale it up slowly. And personally, based on my experience, that's what I did. Going from full-time to part-time to casual in pharmacy, cutting down my hours by quite a lot, doing 40, 45 hours a week down to 18, 20 hours a week, and down to less than 10 hours a week in pharmacy, right? But of course, I have to still do the hours, because in Australia, you have to do a minimum hours to maintain a registration. So that was a reason why I still do it till today, right? And starting small and scaling up, it's important just so that you don't rush into it straight away. Because, entrepreneurs are very impatient and, usually they have a lot of risk appetite. But this can be balanced out, especially when you have working experience, right? You have seen how people fall from great heights, right? And, you can balance that out. So I think these people, fantastic. I think I will encourage you to, start your own thing if you really have that, right? But I would definitely want you to ask yourself is, do you have what it takes, right? We spoke about, uncertain rewards and high risk, right? We spoke about lack of structure, right? And then the other thing that you touched on was financial predictability, not financial stability, right? Your fixed income, it's very predictable. And when you're going to get your bonuses or incentives, how much annual leave that you're going to get and all that, right? It's very predictable. Are you okay with stepping away from that financial predictability, right? And then responsibility, right? You have to wear many hats when you're an entrepreneur, right? You are the HR, you are the sourcing guy, supply chain, you are the marketing person as well.
It can't be someone else's problem, right?
Yeah,
Because if you're working in a
exactly.
company, if you hear of something, you can easily go, well, that's not my problem, right? But if you are the business owner or the entrepreneur, every problem is your problem.
Exactly that. Are you ready to wear multiple hats? And you know what? I still do that nowadays. I still wear multiple hats in the company. And we touched on lack of structure. Like, you need to build that structure from the ground up for the company, right? Setting things in place, right? Because you employ people in, they're not going to do that for you because they don't know what you want. They don't know where you want to get to. And that's
And if they
that's
did, they'll be
important.
starting their own business. They won't be working for you.
Exactly that,
Yeah.
right? And the other thing that I have to definitely encourage listeners to ask themselves is, do you have that emotional resilience? Because being an entrepreneur is actually not easy, very tough, and it can be a very lonely journey as well, right? And do you have that emotional resilience to handle yourself going through ups and downs, going through disappointments, rejections, going through successes, failures and all that, right? Do you have that? Do you have what it takes?
Hi, everyone. Before we continue with our conversation, I want to take this moment to ask a favor from you. If you have been finding the content and direction of THX to be valuable, can you do me this one favor and subscribe to the YouTube channel as well as the Spotify platform? This will give me an indication or an idea of how helpful or how valuable what we've been doing here at THX would be to you. And if you want to go even a step further, I want to invite you to subscribe to our Substack at thehumanexchange.substack.com. It is a mailing list, and the intention that I have behind that is to give you further insights to some of the topics that we've been talking about, as well as build a community that will be interested in exploring the themes of performance, purpose, as well as potential in both our professional and personal lives. Thanks, everybody. And now back to the episode. What about younger people? Because just how you mentioned that you had some co-founders who came out. This is pretty much their first thing out of uni, right? So you didn't understand structure and all that kind of stuff, where to start, how to strategize, how to come up with a plan. Do you think younger entrepreneurs should get mentors? And if the answer is yes, you'll explore that a little bit. How do they go and find a mentor?
Very good question. I think my answer will still be the same. Should young people go and do it without experience, right? I think I would encourage you to do it as well, because at the end of the day, if this is what you want for yourself, go and do it. And, of course, it will be my same answer as the question before. Make sure that you validate your idea first. Just don't because you're obsessed with that idea and you think that that's the perfect idea. No, validate that idea and calculate your risk. Take calculated risk rather than just jump it in. Back then, I just jumped in like that, right? But I would advise you to take calculated risk. But don't spend too much time thinking, overthinking. Don't. Just start doing it. And you will find yourself. And on your question, whether do you need a mentor, right? I think it's very important. You need to have a mentor. And even today, I do have a mentor. My co-founders do have their mentors. I think mentors are very important. How to find this mentor? I think it's important that you need to find someone that is relevant to you, that understands your business as well, understand where you want to get to. This person has done it before. Don't ask someone that is not relevant to your industry or where you are, right?
Yeah. With that, I have this saying, right? Most people are well-intentioned, but often misinformed. So, because when I also made a career transition, I had many people around me telling me that, no, you can't do it. It's going to be terrible. How are you going to do this? How are you going to do that? But I think the key is to actually find people and only get insights from those who have walked the path that you are about to walk on. So yes, that's I think very, very true. Find mentors as specific as possible, right? Somebody who has gone through not just being an entrepreneur, but maybe even gone in the same line of business or industry that you're trying to get in, and then draw from those kind of insights. Let's shift gears a little bit. So we've established that entrepreneurship is great, but it's not for everyone. And there are also certain impact to your personal life. So the impact that I want to talk about is impact on relationships, family. For you, what kind of impact or what kind of things are you going through as a result of you pursuing this entrepreneur route? How has it affected you for your own personal life, your relationships with your family, and how do you navigate through that?
Yep, I think a very important aspect to touch on, or topic to touch on, right? Being an entrepreneur, like I mentioned earlier, it's a very lonely journey, and you have to be able to control your emotions quite well, because nobody understands what you go through. Even my parents, they don't understand what my brother and I go through in that journey, right? And they are there to support us nonetheless. But of course, they would never fully understand like what you're going through. So you have to be able to, first thing is, control your own emotions. And secondly is you need to be able to speak to someone that you can trust. Find someone that you can trust. Find someone that don't judge you. Be it your parents, be it your girlfriend, be it your wife, or be it your best friend. Not someone that, I personally don't believe that someone I've just met, and I share a lot with this person. It's definitely someone that knows you well enough, knowing your strengths, knowing your weaknesses, and knowing what you're going through right now, and being able to be there to support you is it's very important. And how I navigated through all this is definitely my parents. My parents have been a great pillar of support, and they are people who don't judge lah. I think that's very, very important. And I'm fortunate that I still have my parents around, right? When I go through failures, I call them first. When I struggle, in businesses, of course, you have disagreements and misalignments with your co-founders or, some of your senior managers and all that. I tell them, I just need to tell someone about my problem. I don't need you to solve my problem, but I just need you to listen to my problem. And sometimes I'm worried that people judge me, hey, why are you so silly? This is a small problem and all that. But parents don't judge. I feel parents don't judge because they are there for us. They love us, man. No matter how badly you have failed, they love us. They will still tell you it's okay. Or some parents will tell, why you make these kind of mistakes? But especially Chinese parents or Asian parents, right? But their intention is good. They will always come back and tell you that it is okay. Never mind. Let it go. Forgive this person. Do it again. Try it again, right? And parents are always someone that I always go to, and also the first person that I go to when I have succeeded in something, right? I'll call them straight away and tell them, or take a picture, opening this new store. This store is beautiful, next level, game changing. Share it to you. Always keep them updated about our progress. Every time, both my brother and I do this all the time. Is we travel a lot. Every time before we fly off, we always tell them. And, we always keep them informed. When we arrive somewhere, we always tell them, keep them informed. Because I feel no matter what, they will be there for you. They will check on you. Are you okay? They just need to know that you are okay. And sometimes that are you okay is very important. A lot of times you say, okay, no problem. You'll be surprised. There was a couple of times, right? I actually said, no, I'm not okay. I'm sick or I'm unwell. And of course, it will start off with nagging. Why you don't look after yourself and all that, right? But, that is a remedy to my soul, I feel. Parents asking you, are you okay? And that's how I navigated through all these challenges, especially emotional challenges and, going through this very lonely journey.
Yep. So having a strong support system, whether it's from your parents or your loved ones, I think is critical for your own personal well-being. But when you have this support system, you also have to nurture these relationships. And we've already established that being an entrepreneur, you may have time freedom, but sometimes the time commitment is actually double or triple. So have you found yourself having to balance that, to juggle that? Because you're married, right? You've got 2 kids. Yeah. So how do you balance, the demands of being an entrepreneur, wanting to push your ideas through, keep your business going, lead people, but at the same time, make sure that your relationship with your family is still good. You're still there for them. and you're not like neglecting them. Is there any? Can you speak into this at all?
100% can. I think, I don't do it very well, I have to say. And I'm guilty of this sometimes. And, but I make an effort. Back to my parents. I try to call them whenever I can, video call them, speak to them, right? And same as family. I try to spend time with my own family as well. I think what's very important here is that common understanding, that alignment, and the vision or the goal of where you want to get to. Or some people call it the North Star or the true North, right? Making sure that they understand why you are doing this and how you are going to do this is very important. In short, communication. Communicate properly so that they know why are you spending a lot of time during this period of time, right? And why you need time for yourself during this period of time and why you need to travel during this period of time, right? Communicate that across. And, but you need to strike a balance. This balance is very hard to strike. And I think I'm not doing it very well, but I'm trying to be better. Spend time for yourself, not just for, people around you, right? My parents, of course, spend time for myself is also very important. For my family, my kids, my wife is also very important to make sure that, they know that you're not gone. You don't just disappear like that, right? But of course, it's a balance that's very hard to get. And I think the key here is communicating. Sometimes I do forget to communicate. And I can be a good communicator to my team members and all that, right? But sometimes I just forget to communicate to my loved ones, people around me, right? And I constantly remind myself that I need to communicate this well. It's just like, I think as a pilot or as a captain of a ship, right? You need to tell them where you're getting to. Everyone needs to be in that same alignment, right? Just so that they understand you and understand your situation right now. I wasn't doing that very well back then, and now I'm trying to do better.
Yeah. It's those closest to us, we tend to neglect, right? We tend to be less mindful of them. I suppose because it's always, business needs always seem very urgent. Because if I don't think about this, who's going to think about that? If I don't do this, who's going to think about that? So it can always seem very, very urgent. But we forget that while family needs are not necessarily urgent matters to be solved all the time, but they're important, right, for the long run. And I guess it's about balancing that, having the right, you talk about emotional resilience, but it's also having that mental capacity to bear that mental load. I think often what you're talking about is having the mental load. Like we have to think of our business, we have to think about our career, but at the same time, we also must think about our family. It's easy to think about business career because it's urgent, right? So that's why you always be communicating. But you need to kind of like expand a little bit of energy, invest into and bear the mental load of communicating with your family, telling your spouse that, hey, I've got this busy period coming up. I got these things lined up. And then maybe even telling that to your kids if they're able to understand, like, hey, I can't be there, but when I get round to it, I'll bring you out for a trip. I'll spend time with you. I'll do all of that. All of this is the mental load, which I think maybe we haven't really thought about it in a meaningful way, but it's that, isn't it? That mental load that we need to invest in and we need to put in, right? That's why I think there's burnout happens. It's not just about the physical factor, but it's that emotional, mental factor. When you take on entrepreneurship, when you get into building something, it is not just going to take more out of you physically, but it will also require more mentally, right? And having that North Star, that clarity of why we are doing this, you must align that with your spouse, with your family members, and they must be on board with you, on the same page. But at the same time, that must be consistently communicated. I mean, that's marriage, isn't it? We often subconsciously think that, hey, I'm with you so long already, right? You should understand. But that's not how it works, right? You have to still communicate. You still have to share. And I think that's part tussle of doing all of it, right? Building a business, but also having a family.
Yeah. You touched on a very good point earlier, right? Where business matters are always urgent, and entrepreneurs will always think about jumping into it and solving it straight away, right? There's one thing that I think not a lot of people spoke about, or at least I haven't heard it been spoken about, right? And I really want to bring this up in this podcast, right? Is being an entrepreneur, there's an addiction to the grind, and I am definitely guilty of that. So what I meant by addiction to the grind, right, is you're addicted to hustling, and you just want to put all your effort and your time, right, into doing that for your business, continuously, right, neglecting everything around you. But you also feel guilty if you are not doing it. When you're taking time off, you feel guilty. When you're taking a break, you feel like, oh, should I even take this break? Or should I continue doing something? That addiction to the grind is very dangerous. It will lead to burnout. And I learned about that, I learned about that. And I really want to personally share this because you need to be able to strike a balance. And the importance of striking that balance so I cannot emphasize enough. And be mindful of this addiction to the grind if you are an entrepreneur or if you want to be an entrepreneur.
Yeah. I think that's the struggle that many high performers have, right? They are addicted to the grind, so to speak, as you mentioned, right? Because they want to keep on working on it, and often that grind is the one that yields immediate results. Like you can see it come into fruition, or you can see whether it works or not, right? The result and the impact is more or less quite immediate, or you can see it, right? But things like relationships is kind of like the flip side. You invest a lot in it, but you may not see the results yet, right? In fact, if you don't invest in it, the results might come and bite you back later. We all hear the story of the top performer who prioritize business or career, but not their family. Then later on, when they're older, they got estranged relationship with their kids. So we all know that. But like you said, the grind, what's immediately in front of us, is sometimes very hard to ignore and avoid, and we have to really intentionally make ourselves, not be so focused on that. Any handles that you can share with people on how you manage that if you find that you're a workaholic, you're just grinding all the time, and you feel guilty even when you rest? What kind of advice will you give to people like that?
Oh, very tough, very tough. I struggled with this myself for quite a long time, right? And just recently, to be honest, I realized that, very important to also spend time for yourself, love yourself, right? A lot of time you put people first and you forget. And especially when, your business, your work is in front of you and you also have people around you, right? You put all of that first. At least for me, right? But now I'm trying to, spend time for myself, right? And, but of course you have to communicate it with your loved ones as well and say, hey, I need some time off for myself, because it's very important to be able to do what you used to do a lot, what you enjoy doing. So I used to do a lot of sports, and nowadays, I don't have much time for sports. Then that's when I realized, hey, I actually find a lot of joy in, doing sports, not just because I love to exercise, but the network, the social networking that you get out of that, right? So, communicate and say, I need some time off to do sports. Sometimes I get a lot of great ideas when I'm actually shutting down. So, it's also very important that you know when to shut down so that you're not completely shut off still. So I'm not completely shut off when I'm shut down, right? So I just like to relax. When I travel for work, maybe 2-3 days, I'll be fully focusing on work, right? There'll be half a day or a day, right, that I just take time off for myself, be it anywhere that I travel to, right? Just to explore and absorb what the world has, and think and take a step back and think about what you're doing right now and what you want to do in the future, right? And really spending time with yourself is very important. And that's how I've been navigating through, and I think I'm getting better at it, feeling less burnt out, feeling less, not so balanced in terms of all these things, right? And I just want to encourage people to maybe try that as well. That's how I discovered lately that it helps with me by spending time loving myself and caring for my own self.
Yeah. A lot of it is also tied to how we see ourselves, isn't it? Like, typically a person who is always grinding or is always wanting to, do something, they can be, yes, naturally motivated, naturally driven, but sometimes there could be an underlying psychological or emotional factor beneath that, where maybe they're trying to prove something, or maybe they feel like it's only when I am producing something, then I'm of someone of value, then only I'm someone of worth. There's this very cliche saying, right? You're not a human doing, you are a human being, right? It's coming back to understanding that, it's not just what you have produced that defines you. It's you are you, right? Yeah, you inherently have value, and your value doesn't always just comes from external things like material possessions or financial standing or even your businesses, but it's who you are inherently as a person. Because I've also seen and heard of people who, in pursuit of success, they burn the whole world down. They burn the world around them, right? They kill their not literally, but really they kill their business, their teams with a lot of pressure, a lot of just the way they speak to them, and then their loved ones also end up becoming collateral damage on their journey to this success. But at the end of the day, they're alone. They have nobody around them. But it's coming back to understanding who you are, what you value, and also seeing at the end of the day, what is the kind of life that you want? Because if you think about it, how much is enough? There can always be more, right? But at the cost of what? Right? Because it's having that clarity to understand all of these things. So yeah. Maybe we'll spend the next we're having a great conversation. I'm really enjoying it, Elvin. Maybe we spend the next 10 minutes before we close sharing a little bit now about what you are, the stage of your business that you're in. So you went from start up to scale up, and now you're kind of like in the process of trying to build your businesses. What are some challenges that you are experiencing today, and any advice that you can give to people in a similar stage where maybe they've started their business, they've gained some kind of traction, and now they are a bit of like in a phase where they want to scale. So yeah.
Well, very, very good question. I think a lot of people need to consider this, especially when they are scaling up. I think right now, presently, one of my ongoing challenges, right? One of my challenges is definitely how do you get your team aligned or your whole company aligned to your vision. And firstly, of course, you have to set this vision, right? The North Star or the true North. How do you get your team aligned? That is a constant struggle. And, no matter how seasoned you are, right? I believe you still struggle with this. And I've done it many times, but I still struggle with it. How do I get my team aligned to make sure that everyone's on the same page, everyone is running at the same pace, and we will get to the end goal together? How do we do that? And that is something that I still struggle with, and it's a big challenge to me. Especially right now, we are past scale up. So we are going global right now, bringing the brands global. We are in Singapore, Indonesia, Thailand is coming up. We're in Middle East and all that, right? And more countries are coming up. How do we do global scale? And and of course, people don't understand, may not understand your vision straight away, right? But how do you dissect it down to be able to break it down into goals that are compelling, that are actually going to make them turn it into actions? How do you get your team to do that? Right? So that's my constant struggle right now.
When you talk about alignment, are you talking about commitment from the team, or the type of competency, capability they need to develop, or like what sort of things are you talking about with alignment?
I think it's more about where the company wants to get to next. we are here now, and of course we have achieved a lot of goals, and we don't want that you have arrived syndrome. You don't want that, because once you have that, you get complacent. And of course, we are always building for the next things. And a lot of people that are with me right now in the company, they are in alignment with that. I want to get to the next phase. I want to be in a Malaysian company that built a Malaysian brand for the world, or for the global stage, right? And we need to make sure that we constantly empower them and constantly encourage them to the next phase, next vision, and next goal, right? But that cascading that down, it's a struggle. Like, how do we now tell them we have a new vision or a new goal, right? It's not going to replace the current goals or the goals that they have achieved. Is the next big audacious goals that you want to get to, right? How do we tell them, especially the leaders, right? Especially the senior leaders, and you have to start from them, because they are the one cascading it down to middle managers, to the juniors, and you need to make sure that all their KPIs are structured towards your end goal, right? Say right now, what I'm doing right now is not just working on the current stuff, but also planning 2-3 years ahead, right? And how do we tell them 2-3 years ahead? And a lot of times, I get comments like, "You entrepreneurs are crazy, lah." Like, you guys are just like, thinking so far ahead. You're so paranoid. You're so fear of failure and stuff like that, right? And and we need to make sure we balance that and tell the team that, hey, look, it's not because I am paranoid. It's not because I want to make more money, but it's because I want to drive bigger impact to everyone, to the country, to the team, to myself, and to everyone.
It's a bit ironic, isn't it? I don't mean to be to say this or to be disrespectful, but it's like, when you were younger, you didn't want all this structure. You wanted creative freedom, but now you need that structure, and you cannot have the people below you being too creative, because they need to be aligned. They need to follow what has been said, because you need to build that kind of consistency to develop the momentum in order for your organization to scale. So it's kind of like come one full circle, isn't it?
You have grown up, right? So, back then we were 2-3 people in the team, getting to 10, getting to 50, getting to 100. Now we are close to 150, I believe, and just in head office, right?
That's just the management, not including the retail stores, or is that everybody?
Not including retail, retail employees, right? Wow. If we're including retail employees, probably another 200-300 there. So it's quite a big team. And how do we ensure that everyone understands what the bosses want, where the company needs to head to, right? And that's a struggle. You need a bit of structure there. But don't get me wrong, right? We still do a lot of things very scrapey. In our company, we do have what we call it the existing side of business. And we do always have a venture arm, which I call it like a lab, like a special projects team, right? That always try out new things. And you need to know that they are of different structures. You cannot expect the venture arms to be very structured and everything needs to be like this, SOP driven. No, they can do things their style, their way, and this side of people should not interfere this side of people. Yeah, so yeah.
Cool, great. Last question I have for you, Elvin, before we summarize and close. I did want to talk a little bit about getting investors, dealing with investors. Any advice on that? Like, how do you how and when do you start looking for investors into an idea or a company that you're building? And what kind of dynamics do you need to manage, or things you need to consider when you actually bring in investors to your business?
I think bringing in investors is like bringing in a business partners, right? This guy will have a board seat in your board meeting, right? So you need to make sure that they know what you want, where you want to get to, and how you're getting there and why you're getting there.
So you have to be aligned with them as well.
You have to be aligned with them as well. And also not just about you, it's about them as well. Like, actually, what do you want from me, from investing in me, right? Make sure that they understand, so that we are not always fighting, but we are always helping each other to get to the end goals. I think that's very important. And how do we get investors, or when do you think it's a time to get investors? I think this is about your business, where you want to get to as well. So, are you happy being an SME? Back then we were an SME, right? So are you happy being an SME? If you are, then keep everything to yourself. You don't need to have investors.
When you say SME, you're defining it by revenue?
Revenue.
Okay.
Revenue.
Yep.
And
what's the range of
at that point of time, we were $2 million US. Yeah. And we only had our first investors when we are about crossing the 10 million US dollar mark. So then, you need to know why you need these investors. A lot of times it's not just for the money. How we vet our investors or how we choose our investors is who are these people? Are they going to be relevant to your next 5 years, where you want to get to, right? And the people that we choose to be our investors are very strategic and say that these guys are the guys that are known in the region, well connected in the region. Because yes, money can do a lot of things, but you also need connections. You also need these reputable figures that are representing you as well in the board meeting, representing your company as well to get to your next phase. So I think that's very important in terms of your investor selection. But about timing, it's about, if you are ready to scale up. Because no matter how much money you have, if you don't know what to do with it, you're still going to be the same, right? So you need to have a very clear direction. What are you going to do with this money? It's just like a lot of people, I have a lot of money, but I don't know what to invest on. I just put in bank in, fixed deposit or term deposit, right? But now that you have investors in, you have money, what are you going to do with it? Ask yourself that. And why do you need this money? Okay, where you want to get to? So those are the questions that you have to ask. And is your business sustainable? I think it's something that you need to ask yourself. A lot of businesses are, they go up and they also come down very quickly. Have you built something sustainable? Where you're going to get to, is it sustainable? I think that's something that, if you are an operator of a business, that you have to ask yourself.
To your knowledge, is there a huge network for entrepreneurs, no matter what stage, whether they are at the startup or scale-up stage, maybe like an incubation kind of like a network that people should know about? Like if you are starting... you're a budding entrepreneur, or if you're trying to, is there any kind of network, or are there any formal kind of networks, or a lot of it is still quite informal, it's still through relationships?
Actually, there are both a lot of formal ones and also a lot of informal ones. I myself, and I mean, as I'm speaking on behalf of RPG, we have not participated in any of these before, but there are a lot out there in the markets, right? Incubators to help you, to advise you, to give you funds and all that to scale up, right? But I think, fortunate or not, we have not been through one of these. So the very first fund that we raised was straight away from VCs, venture capitalists.
And how do you find those venture capitalists? Through relationships? Or?
No, we actually cold-reach out to them.
Cold-reach out, okay.
Cold-reach out, email them and say, hey, I have a great idea, I have a great company, I have good track record so far. Do you want to look into it? Yeah.
Okay, cool. I think that's another topic that's a whole other topic that it can be another deep rabbit hole if we were to go down that way. But we've already been talking for quite a fair bit. Very, very robust and rich conversation. I've thoroughly enjoyed my time. Before we end, anything, last comments or encouragement that you want to give to our audience, or any things that you want to further emphasize on?
So this whole podcast is about to build or to belong, right? One piece of advice that I would want people to take away from this, it's really asking yourself, what do you want for yourself before you make that decision? What do you want for yourself? And are you ready for all the risks that I spoke about? And do you have what it takes to be an entrepreneur before you make that decision? There's no right and wrong. It's okay to work for a company to build someone else's dream or vision. Or I call it, in a nicer way, entrepreneurship. There's nothing wrong with that. And being an entrepreneur, you think that it's fancy, it's glamorous, but no, there are a lot of challenges that we go through. And one big one is definitely that emotional strains and also the delayed gratification. Are you ready to accept that being part and parcel of the journey? So that's my advice to you. What do you want in life? And, always be happy about what you're doing. Yeah.
Great. Wonderful. Do you maintain a consistent online presence? I don't know, like can people reach out to you on LinkedIn or whatever? Anything like that?
People can reach out to me on LinkedIn, Elvin Chee, ELVINCHEE. I am not active on social media and stuff like that, and I usually don't put myself out there. So speaking to audience and all that, right? It's not my thing. But yeah, if you want to connect with me, reach out to me on LinkedIn, and I'm very active on LinkedIn, so I'll reply to you.
Yeah, we'll put all of your contact details as well as some of your company details in the show notes, and people can go and find out more about your company and yourself, right? But Elvin, thank you so much for taking the time and joining us on this episode.
My pleasure, John.
Well, thanks everybody for tuning in to this episode. If this was helpful, if you enjoy the content that we put up, I encourage you to like and to subscribe both to the YouTube and the Spotify channel. So once again, thank you everybody. See you in the next episode. Bye-bye.